Hello and welcome back to the channel. So we're going a little off topic today. You'll have noticed if watching any of my videos that the cubbies behind me are lit in various colours. This is done using these little push lights. These happen to be Energizer branded, but there are plenty of off-brand or different brands of these available out there. I got these from B&M and they come in packs of 6. They're a simple push light, allowing me to change the colour. And they come with a little remote control allowing me to alter the colour remotely, which is jolly nice. There's even what I like to call a disco mode, which is where the colours will continue to cycle through. None of you will be surprised to hear that the first thing I did on purchasing these was use Omni Remote on my M500 in order that I could control them with this instead. Like so. Pretty cool, huh? These little lights get used an awful lot, not just for illuminating the cubbies, but also for adding a little bit of colour to thumbnail images or behind items I'm filming, or in many cases through the glass table on which I tend to film. The issue with these little cubby lights is that each one uses 3 AAA batteries, and because the infrared sensor is on permanently, then over about 8 weeks it'll drain the batteries even without use. And of course, I actually use them, so they get drained a lot faster than that. Given that I've got 10 of these running, that means every 8 weeks I'm going through 30 batteries. And it's that I want to discuss today. As you can imagine, I wouldn't even dream of using disposable batteries in these cubby lights, given the incredible amount of waste it would produce, and of course the cost inherent in running all these lights. In fact, at home I rarely use disposable batteries at all, tending to simply use rechargeables instead. Where I do use disposable batteries, such as the remote control for the TV, I always buy branded batteries, and that's because if you look at any of the comparisons, you'll soon discover that cheap batteries really are not worth the money. So if I were to run these on alkaline batteries, then a set of Duracells costs about $16.89 or about 70p a battery. For Energizer, I found these for $13.49 for 24 or about 56p per battery. And for the Amazon Basics, they were $6.97 for 20, so they come in around the 35p mark. And however you look at it, I'm going to need about 30 of these batteries, a minimum of every 8 weeks. Don't get me wrong, buying in bulk can reduce the cost of batteries, or you can go off-brand, but as I've already said, going off-brand usually results in very poor performance. All of this means that if I'm going to use these lights on alkaline batteries, I have a built-in running cost of between £63 and £126 a year. So what I needed was a better solution. So here's 3. So the simplest solution is simply to use rechargeable batteries for all of these. I already use rechargeables for pretty much everything, and that's because it doesn't take long to recoup your initial outlay. I tend to buy Amazon Basic rechargeables. There are many YouTube channels that do battery comparisons. It's not something I'm going to do here today, but these always rank very highly in terms of a cost versus capacity comparison. A pack of 12 costs about $16.84, so you're looking about £1.40 per battery. According to numerous internet sources, the average alkaline AAA cell has a maximum capacity of about 1200 milliamps. Now there'll be a lot of variation on that. If you buy cheap, I'm sure they rock below 800, and I'm sure if you buy very expensive or the lithium ones, then they'll run much higher. But the average maximum is about 1200, which is about a third capacity more than in one of these. So based on an Amazon Basic and assuming it produces 1200 milliamp hours, then pitted against one of these, you need a little over 5 cycles for break even. Probably 5.5 by the time you account for electricity costs. You can get an 8-bay charger for around £10. You can pay a lot more if you want a smart charger or more slots. So your total capital expenditure for a charging station and about 30 of these bad boys is between £50 and £80, depending on exactly what you go for. So the break even for that capital expenditure is around the 1 year mark if they're in regular use. The only minor issue with this option is that with an 8-bay charger, it still takes 4 rounds of charging in order to charge 30 batteries. So we're looking at about an 8-hour setup. You've also got to open each of these little lights, change 3 batteries in it, and pop it up wherever you need it. This can be a little inconvenient if, like me, you just want to set up and start filming. Perhaps there's a better way. So what if instead we took 3 batteries and replaced them with 1 battery and a voltage converter? So this voltage converter is actually designed for a Pi Nano. It takes the input from a single battery and turns it into 5 volt. While the nominal voltage for one of these is 4.5 volt, Alkaline batteries often read a little bit over at 1.7 when they're new, so this will more than tolerate a 5 volt throughput. The worst that can happen, it may shorten its expected 10,000 hour life. The DC to DC conversion circuit, they cost around 70p, so they're not exactly expensive. So let's take a look and see how we've put everything together. So for this project, you are going to need a push light, obviously, a marker pen, you'll see why in a minute, some wire, a screwdriver, a soldering iron with a corresponding solder, and of course you are going to need a voltage DC to DC converter. As I say, this one will take us up to 5 volts. In addition, I would recommend some background lighting, like so. Just a word of warning, it goes without saying that soldering irons are very hot by their nature. Should you burn yourself, I will accept no responsibility for damage to yourself, your possessions, or anything else. If you're uncomfortable using a soldering iron, or in any way unable to use it sensibly, then please don't do this. Also, if you are enjoying this video, a like and a sub would be excellent. First things first, you need to take the back off, remove any batteries that are in there, and then we're going to undo these 4 screws. Once you've done that, the top will pop off quite easily. You'll see the push switch that actually instigates when you press this down, and you'll see that we've got 2 connections coming in. This one here runs to this negative terminal, and this one here runs up to this positive terminal. And there's no point putting new battery holders in when we already have a perfectly good battery holder. So what we're going to do is move the negative battery terminal from here, and we're going to simply pop it onto this little lug here. So now what we have is a positive terminal here and a negative terminal here, and we're going to mark that in so we don't forget later. These are going to be the outputs from our DC to DC terminal, and we're going to use the other section to put our battery in. So now I've put that back together, I've used a little foam pad, and I'm just going to stick my block voltage rectifier in there. That's fine, that's nice and secure. So these are the inputs at this end, and of course we need to connect those to our battery, which is going to go across these 2. And our outputs are at this end, so we've got the ground and the 5 volt line just there, so we're going to use that ground and that 5 volt line. So this little red light indicates that the circuit's working, and this red light indicates that this is all working. Just a quick note, I've moved the negative wire from there to there. You can see they're part of the same strip of metal, and I've done that because actually the spring needs to spring all the way down in order for the battery to fit comfortably. So just bear that in mind when you're doing this. So the only issue with using this as a conversion is that it reduces usable battery life to about 3 days on standby and only about an hour and a half of runtime. And this is because there's a constant power drain from converting the voltage, and then you've got the constant power drain of the infrared sensor, and of course you've got 1 battery instead of 3. Obviously, if you're going to do this mod, you're going to need some rechargeable batteries, otherwise you're going to tear through Alkaline batteries at a rate of knots. So the total outlay for a mod like this, for 10 nickel metal hydride batteries, 10 voltage circuits, and of course a battery charger, is going to set you back about £31 to £45, depending on exactly what you go for. Again, this mod will pay for itself relatively quickly. A bit like charging all those other batteries, of course we need 2 rounds of charging, so it's about 4 hours to get 10 batteries all charged. You could of course just buy an extra charger. You then still have to open up each individual unit and change the battery. A minor inconvenience, but you need to do it every time you film, whereas if you've got 3 batteries in, you only need to do it once or twice a month. But perhaps there is a better way. So what if we changed those 3 batteries for a single lithium-ion battery? Quick warning before we start this. Unlike nickel metal hydride batteries, which are very safe to use, lithium-ion batteries tend to explode if they're exposed to heat, excessive charging currents or discharging currents, or any kind of trauma. Therefore, if you are going to attempt this, make sure you are absolutely competent, you have safety gear ready, a bucket of sand just in case. And of course, I accept absolutely no responsibility for your actions incurred in this, whether that is loss of any property or physical injury that goes with trying this. This video is purely for entertainment purposes. So if you're at all unsure about how to deal with lithium-ion batteries properly, then I suggest you stick to one of the first 2 methods. So with a lithium-ion battery, we have a slightly lower voltage at 3.7 nominal. Obviously this varies a little bit between 4.2 at the absolute maximum and a little over 2.5 volts at the minimum. However, since this will work with alkaline batteries down to about 2.5 volts and is perfectly comfortable at 3.6, this shouldn't cause any issues. It is slightly dimmer than the modified ones using the single battery and the block converter to take us to 5 volt. For this modification to work, you're going to need 2 things. You're going to need a charging circuit, preferably with voltage over protection, both to prevent excessive charging and discharging, which can result in a rapid uncontrolled disassembly. These circuit boards cost around 80p. You can pay more if you want a USB-C connection. I've gone for the micro USB, just they're a little bit cheaper and I have a lot of those cables lying around. The next thing you're going to need is a lithium-ion battery of an appropriate size. I would recommend between 400 and 500 milliamps as being a good capacity for this. Obviously, it also needs to be small enough to fit inside the casing. It's easy enough to buy lithium-ion batteries online, but they are prohibitively expensive for this type of modification. If only there was a way of finding free lithium-ion batteries just lying around. For those of you who want to do this modification, you might want to check out this video by bigclive.com. So let's have a look at how we're going to put all this together. So once again, for this you're going to need a push light, you're going to need a charging circuit for your lithium-ion battery, preferably with voltage protection. You're going to need a soldering iron once more, some wires, and of course a lithium-ion battery. So this one's rated at 550 milliamp hours. They're usually quite well marked as to which is the plus and the minus. Make sure you get those the right way around, and as always, be very cautious when dealing with lithium-ion batteries. Finally, you're also going to need a Dremel or something similar, as you're going to need to cut a hole for the charging port. Given that the plastics on this are quite soft, it is possible to do it with just a file. The procedure to begin with is exactly the same. You're going to take it to bits, wire the 2 connections up and mark them down so you know where they're going. Before you put it back together, in order to save a bit of space, we only need these 2 connections, so we're going to remove these other bits. And this creates just a little bit more space inside. The charging circuit itself is going to sit in the top of the lid, and for that you need to remove one of these, and then we need a hole for the port to protrude out of. And that's where the Dremel comes in. The plastic's quite malleable, so I would recommend just removing these using a pair of pliers. It's a lot easier, and you get a pretty good finish. You're going to want to do the same with these little ridges inside in order to create a little bit more space for when you put your lithium-ion battery in. Once you've removed those bits of plastic in there and the tags, and you've removed these, you then need to draw around the section that you want for your charge port. Now these lines that we've removed, these bits of plastic we've removed, actually run in the same direction as this, and there is a little bit of a dip at this edge, so we want them running perpendicular. So that's where I want the charge circuit, and we'll stick the charge circuit to the inside like this, and we just need enough space here for it to protrude in order that we can plug it in without having to struggle. And that looks good. So now we just need to secure our circuit board with our connector protruding slightly. Now that that's done, all that remains is to solder everything together. At this point, you can actually test whether or not the charge circuit is working because we've got the battery soldered in. So all you want to do is plug it in, and we've got a little red indicator to show that it's charging. This will turn blue once it's finished charging. Now we just need to connect these up. So we have our negative and our positive. So let's add a little bit of solder to each. And as you can see, that's now working. Although the fact it's so dim suggests the charge level is very low. So I'm just going to add a bit of electrical tape for safety so that this doesn't short circuit. And then we're going to wind it all in its case and put it to charge. When it comes to charging these up, of course you can just use a USB hub, although it splits the current and so they take longer to charge. But I reckon on about 2 hours charging 4 off a USB hub. So it's a similar amount of time to charging the nickel metal hydrides in order to run a single battery in each. And of course, because we can charge 4 at a time, if you had 3 hubs running, you could charge them all at once. In addition, this has the advantage that you never need to open these again. You can simply recharge them as and when needed. So now we've looked at all 3 of the potential modifications, we need to work out which one is best, if any of them. So I've done a quick runtime study and set them all going at the same time under a time lapse. And as you can see, the first one to go out is the one powered by a single AAA. Now that's not particularly a surprise, but when you compare it to the length of time that the one with 3 AAAs in lasts, it shows how inefficient a DC to DC converter must really be. The single AAA manages 1 hour and 35 or thereabout. The lithium-ion battery dimmed significantly at around 4 hours and 20 minutes, finally blinking out after a little over 7 hours. The one powered by 3 AAAs dimmed significantly around the 7-hour mark. It never actually goes out even after 9.5 hours. Yeah, of course it will eventually, but I think that's quite long enough to run this test. So it's clear that any of these methods in the long term, if you're a regular user of one of these, is going to save you money. The question is, which is best for you? If you're only using 1 or 2, then I would recommend just going out and buying some rechargeable batteries and change the 3 batteries once a month or thereabouts. If you're just using them for short periods of time like I am for filming, then it makes a lot of sense to use the DC to DC converter and simply buy a few rechargeable batteries for when you need them. Especially as this means you don't need to worry about the potential dangers of lithium-ion batteries. If you're using them a lot and you want them to be a regular light source, then actually making them rechargeable over a USB makes a lot of sense, and this would be a good option. Perhaps you know a better way, or perhaps you think I shouldn't have bothered with all of this and I should have just bought some LED strips. Either way, pop a comment below, I'd love to hear your opinions on it. If you know a better way than these, I'd also love to hear from you about that. As always, a big thank you to all the members who are supporting the channel through their channel membership, as well as to you who have subscribed. And if you've not subscribed yet, why not? I'm trying to reach 4,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would very much appreciate it if you did. This video has been a little bit off topic. If you've enjoyed it, let me know. If you've not enjoyed it, feel free to let me know that too. But don't worry, because I'll be back with more of my usual content in a few weeks. It might be a little longer than usual as I'm away diving. As always, my name's Hugh. This is Handheld Computing. Thanks for watching.